Today we're going to talk about how can you make work experience volunteering work for you. There's a huge contradiction in the arts where they don't want you to work for free, but they still want you to have experience with established artists and companies, even for entry-level jobs. So practically, when you have no family support, you need to work for your bills and your just basic needs. How do you make that work? And this is where shadowing, work experience, volunteering comes into play. Those can fit into your life. Don't settle for anything less. The film school I went to had a production arm and they offered you to apply. Not even, you weren't guaranteed that you were going to get it, but they offered you to apply for a 3-month unpaid full-time internship in London. Like madness. I have no family support, so even at the time that was not possible for me. But here are a few things I did, so you might be inspired to try something for yourself. Maybe one of those things could work for you. First, in work experience, you can negotiate. And that's something I learned too late. My first work experience was in a film festival in Paris. They did not force me to sign up for the full week. I did. Because I was 18, I was keen, I wanted to prove my commitment, and in my head it was like, oh, I had to sign up for the full week. But by the end of it, I was resentful and I had no energy. I was exhausted because I had to also go to uni, and that was full time. And I had very little time left for anything outside of it. I felt resentful also because I was giving them all that availability, but I wasn't doing anything new or anything that I didn't know how to do already. And this is where you can negotiate what you're gonna do, the hours you commit, everything. Work experience needs to fit into your life. If they're not paying you for your availability, then you get to choose. And if a company tries to pressure you into accepting full-time availability when you need to work to meet your basic needs, huge red flag. What they want is a free employee that is impressionable, young, inexperienced, whichever combination of those three. And they want to be able to take advantage of you without you having the tools to fight back. So save yourself the trouble, learn from my mistakes, and move on. One other thing to mention is be careful with deadlines. One of my other horror stories was that I accepted too much workload and deadlines that were too tight because I thought it was doable, because I wanted to be involved with those places. I wrote for a couple of film web magazines. One of them I ended up leaving after a few months because you couldn't get some of those more high-profile invites or films because those went to the friends of the editor, of the person in charge. And I was like, well, they're not going to leave. It's too much of a good deal for them. So I had to, because I wasn't just going to wait around to write about films I had less interest in and never being acknowledged for the efforts that I put in. I was like, this isn't worth it. I might as well just open my blog. Then I'll get to work on the things that I actually want to. And I did. Another thing is workload. If you have no visibility on your workload and they can just contact you to ask you to do something from one evening to the next morning, that's not going to work. The second place that I ended up leaving, I really enjoyed it because I could choose the films that I worked on, the films I wrote about. But the problem is sometimes they would send me an email saying, hey, I need you to watch this tonight and write something for the next morning. But I worked until 5 p.m. I'd get home by 6. They might get me the link by 8 p.m., 9. And then you'd end up working all night long on this. And then I have to wake up the next day to go to work. This isn't just long term, this isn't sustainable. And it will take over your life. And at the time, I ended up spending a couple months, 3, 4 maybe there. And I left because I had no time for my own creative stuff, and I was like, this is just not worth it. But on the good side, that I also have some successful volunteering stories. I started volunteering for the Edinburgh Short Film Festival back in 2019. I was just like front of house box office volunteer for 2 nights out of like the 2 weeks that the festival ran. During one of those evenings, I stayed for the networking party at the end, and I met the festival director, and I asked about curating, programming, how do they choose the films. Ended up joining the selection committee, which was on a volunteer basis, but you get to watch as much or as little as you want. They ended up calling me back as a freelance videographer, photographer for a couple of years. And last year I was their workshop coordinator. I worked on the funding application for the workshops, basically helped manage the project from just the concept and the idea we had to the delivery of the project during the festival. And that was fully paid. So sometimes you'll gain maybe a job out of work experience. I gained also new skills, but most importantly, I think you'll gain some relationships that could help you get where you want to go. But if you have to remember something, just don't settle. And anything that's work experience, shadowing, volunteering, it has to fit around your life, not the opposite. Thank you so much. And if there's anything that you'd like us to talk about, anything that's on your mind as an emerging artist, please let us know in the comments below. See you soon. Bye bye.